I've got a fucking bone to pick with you, and I'm going to let you know about it. I mean, you, Fry Guy, and welcome back to TLDR. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. With me, as always, is my snake in crime. Together, we are the Woodward Birds, the DSG. Fryer, my guy, how's it going?
Not great, I would say, because I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'm a little
I'll tell.
worried.
So I'll tell you, it's really been chapping my ass. You've been talking about you discovering hoopla so much that Richard Keefe of the Dork Podcast credited you with turning him on to hoopla, and I gotta say, really chaps my backside.
You know what's funny is I heard it and then I was like, oh, I'm not gonna say anything to Joe. Like
Right up my tailpipe.
I'll let him find out himself, see what he does about it. It's he's credited you for like being the one who discovered it among our friends and everything in the past, but I guess you say a joke long enough, it becomes a truth or whatever. I guess, right? Is
You
that the
son
saying?
of
I
a
don't know.
bitch.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not. I thought you were upset about what I said on Change My Mind the other day, but oh
No,
well.
I missed that one. I don't.
Mm.
I missed it.
Oh,
Unfortunately.
you have to go back and listen to that one. Now it's gonna
Maybe I won't now.
yeah. Now it's gonna be bugging you all episode too. Have you been bugged though on a news related note? Have you been bugged by the news that we got about Tom Taylor and him getting an exclusive deal with DC Comics?
No, I love it. I just
Okay.
I just hope that he's allowed to, any property that he's already kind of started, say Seven Secrets,
Yep.
he'll be
That's a big one.
allowed to he's either going to continue it or it's going to be wrapping up soon. But when was the last time we got a new issue?
It's
I
been
feel like it's been a
forever.
while.
This
Yeah.
well, obviously, when we're hearing about the deal, like we're hearing it in the public domain, we didn't hear about it beforehand or anything. You know that, like, okay, this deal has been in the works for a while. But it's been on pause, Seven Secrets for a little bit. I'm not sure the last time we got one. I think it was the end of the second arc, though, was the final issue, right? Otherwise, it was like issue
Yeah,
13.
and that was back September, October maybe?
It's been a bit, might be even longer than that. And I would think that instead of him trying to wrap it up in the next 6 issues, which he, I guess, maybe could do. I don't know. I have to really sit back and think about it. I have not thought that at all. I thought it was going to be either he keeps it going. It's the one thing he's allowed to keep going. Aside from the Marvel's Dark Ages thing, which is only 6 issues, so that'll be fine. That should be okay. But I would think that he'd either be able to continue that or put it on pause, like it already is. And with Boom and it, like they've had it seems like they've been hit hardest with the publishing, the paper shortage or whatever the hell's going on with the publishing industry, more than any other comic book company so far. So I like it. I mean, he's doing a great job. He does a great job with DC's characters, with all of them. I mean, he's got a great feel for quite a few of their bigger characters, and some of those like Constantine. He has a great feel for that character too. So I like this move. I think it's a smart move on their part when you see the exodus of not Tom Taylor. We're talking
Well, yeah.
James Tynion and obviously Snyder going and doing his own thing now too.
Yeah, I mean they had to make a splash, and what better person to do that with, because like losing Titans a big deal. I mean, Snyder's done stuff, I mean, Death Metal was huge, but I mean that was really the last thing he's done, and it's been a year,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Since Death Metal, and so to lose Tynan as well, who might be the biggest name in comics, at the moment, at least not the biggest, but the hottest.
Mm.
It makes sense. It makes
Yeah,
sense, and
probably
he's
the
been
hottest
killing
one.
it.
Yeah, definitely the hottest one right now. I mean, because he won the Eisner for Best Writer, right, this past
Yeah,
year. Yeah,
yeah.
so he's coming off of that. You lose him when he is on Batman. I mean, and we understand why to some extent, but it's just like that's pretty tough pill to swallow. As much as you got Joshua Williamson to take over for him, and it's he's a good writer in his own right and everything. Tom Taylor is one of those other people who's one of the hotter names right now, and obviously he's got a lot of awesome DC stuff going. So, and it seems like with him, Nightwing, he's obviously saying he's getting the character back on track and everything, but he got to do Deceased, really kicked ass with that. Now he's doing the Dark Knights of Steel too, which is off to an outstanding start. So I feel like with him, and he did, I think, just the one Constantine Black Label book, which was good, not great. Like it was, but he's done other Constantine stuff where I like it. Either way, like he's very versatile, and he's getting to do a lot of different creative stuff too. So that's smart. Let him do whatever the hell he wants. Just like with Sean Murphy, where he's doing all the Murphy vs. Batman stuff, which we're supposed to get news on that this week too. Haven't gotten it yet, but just a lot going on there. So yeah, let the creators create. I mean, it's weird what happens when you do that, right?
I want to see what that contract, because apparently they threw the bag at Tynan for to keep
Oh,
him from
that's
going to
right.
Substack, and he turned that down. So I can only imagine they probably gave him a
That's a good call.
substantial amount of money, which good for you, good for
Yeah,
Tom.
that is a that is a good call. I did not think of that. It's time for catching up. I don't think we have anything from Tom Taylor in our catching up section. But why don't you run through what you've been catching up on heading into this episode?
So I didn't have much last week, if anything, but
Hmm.
I was able to do a good amount of reading this week. So Red Sonja #4. I mean, that continues to be awesome, awesome, awesome. That's by Mirka Andolfo. I read Lunar Room #1. This is from Vault, I believe,
Did the cover
and
you sent me?
yeah,
Yeah.
this was interesting.
Okay.
I definitely enjoyed it, but I got to see where the second book
Mm.
goes because so it was a little more dialogue heavy a bit, and the end of it definitely like pulled me in. Like it took me a second to kind of get my bearings right with it, but an interesting premise. So we'll see where the second book goes before I make a determination on that. Final Fantasy IV Life Story #5 continues to be great. Caught up on the Joker, number
Oh, did
nine.
you now?
Yep.
Okay.
Primordial, man. I read again. So Joker 10 comes out this week. We'll talk about that in a second. And Primordial 4 comes out this week. And so I went back and read the last two issues to get caught up. And I'll tell you what, Primordial is fucking weird.
This is one I'm way behind on. I read the first issue, and then that was it. Obviously, this is Lemire and one of your guys, and he's a great writer and everything. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
it's weird, man. Like it's sci-fi to the max. And so like the present, like I don't when I say present day, I don't mean like present day like 2021. I mean like present day in the story, which is like 1968, 1970. Like when it's dealing with the real world, like that's a
Mhm.
fascinating story. But then it goes into space and what you're getting with the dog and the chimps, and it's like it's either way over my head, like I could like figure it out abstractly what was going on, but like you combine like a weird story with Sorrentino's, avant-garde style art, and I just like anytime it goes to that, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So that's a very interesting story. Um, Second Chance is #4, Nick. We talked with Ricky Mamone
Yep.
and we love the first three issues, but we read those like 5 months ago.
Yep. Yeah.
And
It's
so,
been so long picking that up, and it's like, wow. Normally we go back and check things, but I didn't do that. It definitely threw me off.
yeah, and so I mean, I was able to pick it up, relatively easily. Issue 4, came out last week or whenever it came out, and I didn't know it was ending.
I didn't either. I
I
don't.
was
You did.
blown away by that. I go, wait, this shit's over?
Yeah.
What? It seems abrupt. It was very abrupt.
I don't know. So like I felt like the plane could have been landed a little bit better. And I'm definitely not one to go and gripe too much about endings compared to other guys in the DSG. And everybody has their own things. But with this, I think there was just another layer on top of it where it's like we thought this had the making of being like an ongoing series or a couple of arcs, not just 4 issues and then we're done. And even then, to end it on the fourth issue, I thought at least if you told me after the first 3 issues, yeah, like this is a limited series, this is not going to go past the first arc. I was like, okay, well, you're going to have to do that in 5 then. After reading the first 3, at least 5, if not 6, 4. I'm just
I'm
like,
almost sure as shit, Nick, that when we talked to him, he said it was at least 6. Like
yeah,
it's coming back to me now. So I don't know if because of what's going on with printing issues or if there was
maybe,
scheduling issue, who knows? But
yep,
like rough landing aside, or
mm,
could have been like it was just abrupt. Like when you don't
mm.
expect something to end and then
That's
it
what I mean.
just
Yeah.
ends, it's gonna kind of take you off guard a bit.
Hmm.
And the story itself was fine. I mean, I was really enjoying it. I remember when we read those first 3 issues, I go, "This is fucking awesome!" Like
Yeah.
when you sent me the email, it says, "Do you want to interview this guy?" I said, "Yes, let's
Yeah.
do it now." And then, granted, we had to wait longer because we got them all at once. But I was like, "Oh, I was
Yeah.
definitely let down by
Yeah.
the fact that not just with the issue, but with it being over."
Was it Bertolini or
Max
Bertinelli?
Max
Yeah, exactly. But
Bertel Bertolotti or something like that.
It's funny because we were coming off complaining, so you especially complaining so much about Future State Gotham and how it was in black and white. And don't get me wrong, I've stuck with that title and I think it's been good, but it's definitely lacking because you don't have any color with that series and it's like a neo future. But then we go and get this story and it's like right away black and white, and I'm like, oh no. Like not again. Like but when we start reading it, it's like, well, it fits the tone, and then also his art style is outstanding too. So I was like, this is like, and then we get invested in the story a little bit more, and Ramoni did a really good job. It's disappointing that this came to an end so quickly. I don't know if it's his choice or not. I know this was an oversized issue. It was what, like 36, 34 pages, something
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was definitely this was definitely something where it was like, okay, you have to wrap this up now, or
Yeah,
we're wrapping it up now, and they squeezed 2 issues into one,
yeah, it's got to be
right?
what it was in the end. Too bad.
100%. And then lastly for me, the Rush #1. This came out a little bit ago. I finally got a chance to read it. This was fascinating. It sort of takes place during the Gold Rush, and it's got some horror vibes to it.
Mm.
I'll tell you what, the art and the story kind of gave me some Red Fork vibes.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
not as at least this first issue wasn't like that level of like effed up, but like like with Red Fork, you had that sort of small mining town vibe to
Mm-hmm.
it, and then this has that like very early, USA, Colorado gold rush, small mining. Like it had a
Mm.
very similar feel. Now the ominous bad guy in this is not very terrifying looking at all, but like it's got a distinct presence and people are very afraid of. So I am looking forward to where this story is going.
Okay, this is one I remember we talked about it in one of our solicits. So I guess it would have been last month's solicit, excuse
Yeah.
me. And I was like, oh, this is something I'm definitely interested in, but I did not pick it up. It's my own fault. So I'm gonna let you have this one
Wise decision.
completely. Yes. Oh,
Wise
wise
decision.
decision. Yes. Well, yeah, I cannot wait till we talk more. What's that book that I said I called recently? And
The Good Asian.
no, the Good Asian. You almost pulled a Good Asian on me with what was it? The King of Spies. That's what it was.
Yes,
King
yes,
of
yes.
Spies. Yeah, he texted me about that. I still don't believe you. We'll see. I'm going to catch you in that lie at some point. I'm not ready for it yet. I keep forgetting. I will get you though. There's something I know you went and read that shit, and I'm not happy about it. As for me, from catching up, Basilisk issue 5 came out last week. Made sure I got on that. Crossover 10, which has gotten uh it's already a pretty meta story and it has gotten next level. Are you
I got to read that.
yeah,
No, I
yeah,
got to read that one.
it is immensely meta, but Basilisk, we like so we've had so that's Cullen Bunn. We have Lucky Devil, we have Last Book You Ever Read, which I did read issue 4, catching up on that as well. And Last Book You Ever Read, I would say, is number 2 of his titles that he's got going on right now. And then Lucky Devil, of course, is number 1 with a bullet. It's been friggin' awesome. I can't wait for issue 5 of that. Basilisk was like, I came out guns hot for me. Absolutely loved that first issue. And then the next ones were good, but it didn't like, I felt like issue 2 captured this, kept the momentum, but then 3 and 4 was like a slight tick down. It definitely wasn't a moving up in the right direction. So it's like, okay, like, well, actually, no, that's not true. 4 was really good. That was where it got really violent. Anyways, my point is, Joe, issue 5 is probably the best issue we've gotten since the second issue.
Oh, nice.
I'm getting lost in the details. So I like Basilisk is an awesome book. You have been on this with me, right?
Yeah, I need to read issue 5 as well. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we can't do. I won't be able to do that one on the show. Then this is more of what I'm trying to get at. But yes, really glad that Basilisk is back because it had been gone for a little bit while. That's why the memory lapse is on my part. Knighted issue 2, read that from AWA. Really liked the second issue. Really strong start to this series. Mighty Morphin issue 14. You got the Eltarian War going on right now. Been awesome. We mentioned Second Chances, of course. The other one too, which I said I was going to read, and I'm I just like it's Crimson Reign, okay, which is the Star Wars story starring Kira from was it Han, it's from the Han Solo movie. What is the actress's name? The Khaleesi. What is her
Oh
name?
yeah. Oh
Emilia Clarke.
yes, 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 yes.
Anyways, so yes, it's starring her character in this, and basically, Joe, what's going on now is they're using Crimson Dawn, all these characters now, to they're basically going to be the ones that set the plans in motion for the rebels to take over the empire, and they're going to be responsible for or knocking over the empire, whatever, knocking it down. And I'm like, I'm just reading this, thinking, wait a second, you're trying to tell me that you're going to go and this whole thing that everybody loves, like the first three Star Wars movies, everybody loves. You're going to tell me that somebody else was playing chess behind the scenes the entire time. You're again going to try and like
It
do what
takes
you
away from the story. It
like,
takes away from everything that Star Wars is.
yeah. So you're gonna do what you're gonna basically you're trying to pull a Rogue One kind of like Rogue One was beautiful because it was its own thing. It was crazy, and also it answered a question that like had been around forever with Star Wars, and it was like in the middle ground of the major stuff. Now you're gonna go and mess around with the major stuff, like as a behind the scenes kind of thing. I think the Crimson Dawn have definitely have potential, but this is ridiculous. It started out as like the story between what was it, Empire and Last Jedi with or Return of the Jedi, excuse me, with the Han Solo stuff, and now it's turned into this whole other mess. I mean, we're getting the review copies, so I think I'm going to stay on it so that way I can tell everybody about it. But don't feel great about it, Bob.
Oh, you just saved me, 20 minutes of reading, so I appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah, I'll let you know on two, but it's just like this.
That's dumb.
It didn't love it.
I'm all for good, unique Star Wars stories, but don't
Oh,
go
but
change the fundamental nature of what it is that we love about, Star Wars. It's one thing to, create ancillary stories and go explore things that we don't know, but don't go fucking rewriting history, right?
I that's why I've
Like
stayed.
Rogue One was needed. It was important. Like, it was some major plot holes at that.
Mm,
Like, and
mhm.
and we got some badass imagery in it, and that was great. It was a singular story. That's it. You're not creating a universe. You're not creating a mythos. You're not creating. You're not changing the fundamental nature of what Star Wars is.
Yeah,
Right?
it's absolutely, and that's why I've been giving Star Wars: The High Republic as much leeway as I have. It's been like an okay series, but not necessarily the best. But it's like it's different. It's different era, different time, trying out new things. I'm for that. I want to support that because there are other Star Wars stories that I think should be told, like more Sith shit.
Yeah.
But it's like this is so that like that's what that I'm fine with. This is like what are you thinking? This doesn't make any sense.
Focus your
Um,
efforts and give us a Palpatine origin
yeah,
series.
that'd be cool too. The one thing I forgot to mention that was Cross to Bear issue 1 from Aftershock. Remember talking about that a little while
Yep.
back. Really like the first issue. I have the second one too. Haven't read that yet. But I have like I want to see where the second one goes before I commit to it fully. But it was definitely a good start with that one from Aftershock. So let's see. So it's time to go to what's new, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll kick off with Marvel. Of course, we got Hulk issue 2 from Donny Cates, and ooh, the end. The whole thing's good, but the ending's just like, oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
It's I was saying it to Wes on Change My Mind during the comic book minute. Like, I'm not a Hulk guy. Like you just can't get me to read Hulk stuff, even the bigger stuff. It's like it's just not for me. And I'm so in. Donny Cates is so good, and this is I could not be more in on this Hulk series.
Well, we talked about this when we talked about Hulk 1. Is that Donny Cates is he's found a way to you know give some originality to
Mhm.
a story that generally is pretty bland. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Mhm.
he's given the actual character Hulk, some different what's the word I'm looking for, that without really spoiling anything. He's just given some depth there. He's created some really bizarre, unique layers there, which just makes this series like it's an absolute must read. It
Yeah.
really is.
Through the first 2 issues is an absolute must read, and honestly, with Cates, who had so much success with Venom too, and is just a great writer all around, I'd say this is worth investing in. Like, I would say, like, get in on this series now. Don't wait to see it for Joe and I to see it out. I think that like it's
No,
Hulk. And I wouldn't just say that about anybody writing the Hulk. Cates is really like he's somebody who again, like we talk about a ton. Actually, you've done a lot more of his books on here than me. I think I've only done God Country, which may or may not be coming up in our main topic that we're doing today. But anyways, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Just pick up Hulk 2. Star Wars: The High Republic issue 12 is out this week. Also, Wastelanders Wolverine issue 1 I reviewed for Geeks Worldwide, and it was another one where it's just like, okay, like why, like Did we need this? I don't think we really did. There's some cool Wolverine action. The art's good. Don't get me wrong, it's fine and everything, but it's just like, what? So yeah, I did not give this a favorable grade on Geeks Worldwide, and we can just leave it at that. Yeah, I think I gave it is either a 7 or a 6.5.
Oof.
And there, to me, there is a huge gap between a 7.5 and a 7, like more than any of my other grades. Like that is like a huge drop of when it's 7.5. Like people could like this.
Yeah.
7, like no,
Yeah.
like it's just no. Like at that point, it's just a 70. No, okay. Anyways, other books that came out from Marvel this week got Eternals 8, Strange Academy 14, Defenders 4, Demon Days Rising issue 1, The Thing issue 2, which I have not read that yet. I read the first one. I don't plan on reading the second one. We'll see.
Told you.
Kazor, excuse me. Lord of the Savage Land issue 4, which I may go back and look at some of his stuff. I'm not sure. Let's see. We got from DC this week. I know you have more than a few titles that you picked up from them.
Yeah, so I get caught up on the Joker. Like, took a really fascinating turn. Because it's like I said, it's a Jim Gordon book, right? It has been for 8 issues. Issues 9 and 10 really took a good pivot. And is now sort of living up to the Joker, title in its name. But just as it's doing that, Tynan's going to be leaving it, right? So we'll see where this goes. But I have been enjoying it. It's been a good book. Let's see. Wonder Girl came out, number 6, which you've been reading. Batman Urban Legends, number 10, which I stopped reading after Zdarsky's Red Hood run in that. I Am Batman, number 4. Future State Gotham, number 8, which you've stuck with. Batgirls, number 1.
Yeah, which I did read, and I thought was a very good start. I was not the one to review it for Geeks Worldwide. I think whoever it was ended up giving it a good grade, like an 8.5, I think. And I think that's about right. I definitely think this is good for if you're looking for a book that's, first of all, if you're looking for just a female like heavy book, like this is it, 100%. You've got 3 of the Batgirls, all interesting characters, all different from one another. I think for like a younger female audience too, but I don't think it's exclusive to that. I think this is just like an all around fun time and has a lot of potential.
Nice. Black Manta, number 4. Pennyworth, number 5. I continue to love it. Again, it's not like action packed, and it's not. There's something about it I really enjoy. Because I love the character of Alfred, and which leads me into this next book, which was absolutely fantastic. Nick, Robin and Batman.
Oh my God! Yes,
number 2.
Yes,
and this is only a 3-issue series.
Yeah,
and
this is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen.
This is how it's done. Lemire, and this was such a good issue. And one of the things I took out of this issue, which isn't a spoiler, but it's the character of Alfred and his role with Dick Grayson. He sees what Bruce has become, and he's doing his best to allow Dick Grayson to grow up, still be, have a childhood that Bruce didn't have, while having the same sort of, fate. But the humanity that he's instilling in Dick Grayson that Bruce just doesn't have.
Yep.
Right.
Not one stitch of it. Oh.
Right. And so I've Tom Taylor, while Alfred hasn't been in that story, he's still in it. Right. That he's sort of this, this presence. But just, I love the character of Alfred and what he means. And, he was great. He's great in this series. It's a good little spy series. But Batman Robin 2, man, or Robin Batman number 2, like,
yes,
it was so good. Like all 3 parts, the beginning, the middle, the end, like the way it ended, and what Alfred said to Batman there at the end, like, oh, I loved it.
For all the praise that Joe has for Alfred in this, and it is very interesting to see all of that. How much of really, just for lack of a better term, an asshole Batman is in this. Like when you see at the end, it's like, wait a minute, what? That's what this was this whole friggin' time. You thought it was one thing and there was another, which obviously is great when you get that little twist and everything. But it's like, it's just a slight little twist, and it's like, well, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what Alfred's doing, right? He's trying to not have 2 giant dickheads,
Yeah,
running around the city of Gotham,
that can be problematic.
right? But so that was tremendous. And then lastly, Batman the Imposter #3.
Mm.
I love this series is over as well. Quick series.
There's
This
only
was the
3?
finale. Yeah. And
Oh,
it was awesome. It was dark, it was gritty. And the way it wrapped up, like everything about it, it was just a different take on Bruce Wayne and Batman. And the way it wrapped up, all 3 issues, um, awesome stuff. Awesome
okay.
stuff.
I'm behind on this one. I did not know it was only 3 issues. So maybe we'll have to discuss a little further down the line. Do you think you'd want to do an episode on that? Because I only read the 1 issue. You can still
Well, I
kind
don't
of.
know because it's only 3 issues. So like, I would
Hmm.
just say like it's 3 issues. It's really effing good.
Mm.
Grab it, read it.
Okay.
Like I don't know if I'm going to dedicate. Like I'm not saying that it's not TLD worthy, but it's only 3 issues. So
Right.
how much can you really talk about it without spoiling it either? You know what I mean?
Definitely an issue that we run into with some books, and this one is just a matter of length, not necessarily so much depth. We don't usually run into girth problems either, but I'm sure we'll get to that at some point down the line too. As for Image this week, we got Primordial issue 4, which Joe was talking about. Kingspawn issue 5, of course. Sean Lewis has been absolutely killing it with that series. We're supposed to get The Scorched next month. So make sure if you guys haven't already, subscribe to our show on all our audio or whatever audio platform you listen to us, or subscribe on YouTube, whatever. But that's going to be an audio only release. We did talk to Sean about The Scorched, and we've been teasing it a ton. We're not going to share that with you guys until we know that book's coming out in a certain
Yeah.
week. But oh my God, like he was giddy about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's your words on that one, Joe. He was very excited to talk about Scorch when that comes along. He's been killing it there. Jupiter's Legacy Requiem issue 6. I am not reading any of the Jupiter's Legacy stuff aside from the fact that despite that I talked about it on the show a while back. And then Newburn issue 2, which of course we did have Chip Zdarsky on to talk about that, among other Marvel related stuff as well. Of course, Newburn is Image, but the second issue of this, I think I gave it a 9 or a 9.5 on Geeks Worldwide. I mean, we have read all of the first 5 issues of Newburn, and it's absolutely a must-read series. It's getting turned into a show. This has infinite potential. Like this is such a good book. I don't think I need to say more than that. Like it's like a good synopsis. Like this is fucking kick ass. Anybody can read this. Anybody can enjoy this. Pick it up. Like it's Jacob Phillips, not his father Sean, and Chip Zdarsky. Yeah, awesome series.
Tremendous.
What has been conversely, what has not been as awesome is Berserker from Boom Studios, and that's where we start with them this week. Issue 6 is out from Boom, and then as Joe has given up on, I am still plugging away at that to see what it looks like at the end to report back fully, because we do get the review copies. And then regarding the matter of Oswald's Body, issue 2, you are reading this, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, as you expect, it's revolving around the assassination of JFK, and the first issue was interesting. It was sort of about putting this team together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it, I mean, given the title of the book, you're assuming it's going to have something to do with Lee Harvey Oswald and the JFK assassination. You just don't know how exactly, and then this issue comes in and puts things in a lot better focus, and it's got a great little like shit goes sideways at the end of the issue, which was awesome and really sets up the next issue really well. So this has been a good, fun conspiracy. It's a very new, interesting look at all the many JFK, assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald conspiracy theories out there. So this one's fun. It's definitely got that Department of Truth vibe to it, but it's not as like with Department of Truth. It's real heady, and it's a lot of it's like deep thinking. This is just like pure, straight up conspiracy thriller, like. Boom, you know exactly what you're getting.
Is this a limited series? Do you know?
I mean, it's got to be.
Okay.
I'd imagine. I don't know for sure, but it's.
Okay.
I mean, I can't envision this, being ongoing.
Okay. Yeah, because if it's ongoing, then you start going into the Department of Truth territory, and then it's like, that seems a little bit too on the nose. Like, how are you getting away with that?
Right.
From Dark Horse, we got Maze Book issue 4, another Lemire book that you are reading. No One Left to Fight 2, issue 3, which I enjoyed that first series. A little behind on this one right now. I did like the first issue coming back. Joy Operations issue 2, which I gotta say, I keep getting that one in the matter of Oswald's Body confused with one another, different publishers, but it's the O. Like, yeah, I guess that's what it is. I don't know. I'm pretty simple-minded when it comes to certain things. And then we
Not
got
familiar with the O, are you?
oh man, no. Wow, got me there. Then we got Cloaked issue 1, which I do want to read, but I did not read it ahead of this episode. You did. How was it?
Yeah, I might call dibs again, to be honest with you.
Oh man, this is my own
You gotta,
fault. It's my
you
own
gotta
fault.
be quick. You gotta be quick. No, this was really good. Really interesting story. I mean, we talked about this in the solicit, where I mean, like the solicit has its sound. I mean, in the cover art and the whole premise of it, it's like, okay, this is a knockoff Batman and Robin story, but there's so much more to it. And you know, it's about a Batman like vigilante who
Mhm.
shows up out of nowhere. Except, you know, imagine if Batman was Red Hood and just killed,
Okay,
right?
nice.
And just brandishes his own form of vigilante justice. He's got a little sidekick, and then just disappears. And then, so the premise of the book is that some wealthy person, finds this sort of private investigator to go looking for the cloaked, vigilante for that disappeared 25 years ago. So now you've got a sort of
Hmm.
detective story on top of it. And there's a part in the book where he interviews the former Boy Wonder, and it was awesome. It was very, very good. I enjoyed it very much.
Oh man. All right. Well, I guess I'm trying to think. Like, I want to give you this one, but you just called dibs on, what was the other one you called dibs on? The Rush. Let's see how the second issue goes. Like, 'cause if it blows you away and knocks your socks off, then I will wait. If it's like, I don't know, like maybe like it's still good, but not quite there yet, I need to see more, then I'm
It's
gonna
the holiday season, Nicholas. Give it a read. You'll enjoy it.
okay. Oh, okay. All right. Anyways, from Aftershock, it does sound great. Like, you seriously, like
It's
I
good.
was
It's good.
interested
Give
in
it a
this.
read. It's good.
From Aftershock, we got Heathens 2, which you are reading, right? Are you caught up on
Uh,
this?
no,
No, we
I
don't get
plan on
Aftershock.
reading issues 1. I have issue 1. I'll buy issue 2 when it comes out
Okay.
on Wednesday.
One of the few companies we don't actually get review copies from. We'll have to change that at some point. My Date with Monsters issue 2. I read that first issue. What didn't really sell me on it. I like Tobin. Obviously, he went and wrote Bunny Mask, and that was outstanding. One of my favorite books of 2021. Um, but I don't know if I am going to give the second issue a shot. I might, but it's just like it's got to really knock my socks off for me to stay with it. IDW, it's just, I almost think it's not for me. I don't know who it's for though. Sometimes I do, like that's where it's like I don't know if it's bad or if it's just like I don't know. Like it's not
It's not
obvious
for
with this
you.
one.
It's
Yeah.
not for you.
IDW TMNT 124 is out this week. Titan Gun Honey issue 4, which obviously you are a big fan of that series. It's been kicked.
Cheers.
Everybody's been
Cheers.
loving that. Comicsology has We Have Demons issue 3 out this week. What? It's a great series. Everybody knows it's a great series. What?
Go ahead and tell the people if you fucking read it or not.
I haven't read the third
You
issue.
son of a bitch.
I haven't read that issue ahead of this episode. I apologize. I tried to catch up on a lot of the stuff, and it may or may not have slipped my mind. But I did read out issue 3, which you are way behind on, and I'm not saying to throw you under the bus, but I wanted to sort out my feelings about where Out is going so far. This is supposed to be a 5-issue limited series with AWA, like they usually are. It has we thought it had a ton of potential from day one. Thought it was going to be a kick-ass series, and it was a little slow. But the end of the first issue was awesome. The second issue was good, and I felt like it was like there was definitely a very interesting development. But then again, with this one, it's like, where are we going? Like the end.
Yeah.
At the same time, we get to the very end, and it's like, oh shit! So like, there's potential for sheer chaos in issues 4 and 5, but I almost feel like this should have been 4 issues if that ends up being the case. Like, because that last moment in issue 4 is like, or last couple moments, like, well, fuck. Like it's some good stuff, but I just don't know how I feel about this series. Like, I definitely can't say it's a must read. You definitely got to see where it goes from here. From like issues 4 and 5, you gotta wait till Joe and I give you the stamp of approval. But right now, it's just been like okay, not great. The art's great, don't get me wrong, but the story is just too slow for me.
Yeah, it's got a pacing problem for sure.
Yeah, so we'll definitely convene on that when you catch up as well, because I need to know if you feel the same way as me. But Vault, the Rush, of course, we talked about before. Issue 2 is out this week. We Ride Titans issue 1, and then Witch Blood issue 9. And Joe, that brings us to the main topic that we have planned for today. Not a mainline episode, which we have done. We're only going to have so many of those over the next few weeks because we just have so much else planned. But we have our holiday episode that we did last year. We did a holiday special. We are going to do that again this year. We're actually going to do that next episode. But for this week, we wanted to do a holiday gift guide. We helped put a comic gift guide together for Geeks Worldwide. There are a ton of other recommendations from other writers on the website for that article as well. So you guys can go check that out. There are other recommendations that I mentioned there that I'm not necessarily mentioning here because I'm kind of trying to reach a lot of different stuff. And actually, Joe, you did double up on that book.
I did,
but
yes.
you have a ton of other recommendations that you want to get into. Of course, if you've been listening to us for a long time, you know this already. But for those who are new, because I could see some new people wanting to check this out because we're trying to help you at the holiday season. With every mainline book, we give you recommendations. So we want to make our own list, like Geeks Worldwide did. This is for our loyal listeners, but it's also for those who have someone in their life looking for recommendations at this time of year. So make sure, if you are a loyal listener and you know someone who is trying to buy comic books for somebody, looking for ideas, or even if they're just trying to get into new whatever, this is the time to let them know. This is the episode to let them know to check out from TLDR, because we're going to have a ton of recommendations today. I think we got like 8 apiece. We may or may not have a special guest helping us out as well with some picks too for a different audience. And we will start with comics for someone new to comic books. You'll kick us off, Joe.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a comic book that I'm going to suggest to anyone. And it's to me, it's an essential comic book to have, and this is one that I bought. I bought for someone recently, and a friend of mine who's 13-year-old son is getting into comics, and he's like, "I'm at the comic store. What should I get?" For Dylan, I said, grab Batman Year One by
Mhm.
Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, because like, for someone just getting into comic books, whether they're like young, like sort of getting into those, teenage years and getting into comics and want to start, like really like reading some more like adult things, or someone who, is maybe in their 20s and have loved watching, the MCU and the DC movies and wants to start getting into comic books. Like, this is the definitive Batman origin story. This is, top 3 Batman book, period. And it's
Mhm.
such a gritty story. The art is fantastic. I mean, everything about it, it's a quintessential comic book that I think everyone should read. And
Mhm.
so for someone that's getting into comics, no doubt, grab this book, read it. You're going to love it, because then it's going to just take you. It's a great introduction to Frank Miller.
Mhm.
It's a great introduction to Batman. It's the best origin story, like I said, and where it'll lead from here is just, I think, endless.
Now, we've talked before. Of course, I think it's a great recommendation. First of all, I like all your recs. I've obviously gotten to look at them beforehand. I liked comics as a kid, but I was not into them like I am now. I did not read them nearly as much as I do now. Read them a bit, but not as much as looking back, I wish I did. But as I've gotten older, I realized like the art now that we see today is what's like really drew me in, and the stories. And obviously, we've gotten a lot of different stuff. We'll talk plenty about indies because those are where the best stories are pretty much told. But at the same time, for someone new to comics, usually you're going to want to give them something superhero related. And of course, you bring up Batman. I'm going to bring up Batman as well. I'm going to go with some newer stuff, though, not like brand new, but within this century. And that's Snyder and Capullo's Batman run. Of course, that was the new 52. The Court of Owls stuff is great for a new reader, too, because it's new to Batman, and he's discovering this whole new monster. And while you at the same, like, you're new to comics, and sure, Batman, the Joker, some of this other stuff, right? But like, Batman's gonna be fighting the Riddler in the new movie, and the Penguin and everything, and Catwoman's there. But like, you don't we know that feeling. Like there's so much out there from Batman, from Superman, all these other different characters, Spider-Man, Wolverine. It's like, where do I start? Where do I begin? Like, how am I gonna jump in on something I don't know the full history of? This is perfect for the new readers because it's like the whole thing is like this is something that totally existed forever for Batman. And then it's like he didn't believe it. He said, no, I looked into it. It's not a thing, whatever. And then he finds out as time goes along, it's like, well, shit, how the fuck did I miss this? And there's just so many different layers to it too. And I think for an adult too, because when we've heard Scott talk about it before, it's like it was an odd time for him. Like it was very intimidating writing Batman, imposter syndrome, all that stuff that he's gone through. So it's just, I think it's something that adults can appreciate very much too, but especially for anybody who's like teenager kid, like you can still very, very much enjoy this. And everybody loves Batman too. I do have honorable mentions also for like people of teenage, maybe in their 20s too, if they're looking to get into comics. Red Hood and the Outlaws, New 52, that was a huge series for me. I do like the Rebirth for the most part. It kind of went off the rails eventually when it was like Red Hood Outlaw, as much as I love that look, and there were some good things, but the New 52 was awesome. That's what brought me back to comics. I love Arsenal, obviously love Red Hood. And then also Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe too is an outstanding series. Of course, our guy Cullen Bunn. We've talked about that book on here a couple times. I think I did an episode on it. We had Cullen on, and he talked about it with us and gave us some fun inside information. And we talked with Axel Alonso about it too, now of AWA, but previously the Marvel editor-in-chief. So ton of stuff there. But still, if like number one for me would be Snyder and Capullo's new Batman run. I mean, a Batman run in the New 52 from DC. I'm sorry.
Oh, so why? Hello. No, I was gonna say. So also, right? Like, obviously, kids are going to be new to comic books, right?
Yes.
And so we get asked from time to time, like, I want to get my kids some comics. What should I get? And so, the Dogman series by Dave Pilkey, Swaggins has them all. Loves them. They're great. Like, we have to read them to her, right? Obviously, but like for those kids who are, learning to read or already know how to read, like these are great. They're hardcover. It reads quick. They're funny. Absolutely enjoyable books. And then maybe for your daughters, wanting to get something. Powers of a Girl by Lorraine Sink. I think we talked about this last year, and we've mentioned it a few times. But this is just a nice hardcover book. Makes for a great gift. It's all the female superheroes and characters in Marvel, and the artwork in it is beautiful, and you get biographies on the characters, you get a list of their powers. It's a really fun read. And if I could have some help here, hey kiddo, is there a book here that you would like to recommend to people? Yeah, Swaggins has a recommendation.
Here we go.
Here we go. Now,
the return of the wee one. All right,
the return of the wee one. So what do we have? Can you hold the book up, kiddo? What are we looking at? Do you know the name of it? Do you remember?
Pony.
It's My Little Pony Transformers, and I'm going to hold it here so people can see.
Oh,
for those watching, and it is Friendship in Disguise, and this is I think Tony Flicks who did the Stray Dogs book does the art on this.
Of course, natural transition.
Right, exactly. But Swaggins has a lot of these books. Do you like them? What is your favorite thing about them? What were you telling me about the pictures?
I like the rainbow.
Yeah, you like the rainbows. You said you like the art, right? Yeah. Do you think other kids would like reading this book? Yeah. What is your favorite thing about it other than the art?
The rainbow.
You just love the rainbows, huh? Yeah.
All right. Favorite character, Joe?
Who's your favorite character, kiddo? Is it Pinkie Pie? Is it Applejack?
Applejack.
Remember?
I love that. That's my favorite character already.
Yeah. Oh, you love Optimus Prime. You were pointing him out earlier. Oh, and Bumblebee. You love Bumblebee, right?
Wait, I'll show you my other favorite.
Okay, real quick, kiddo.
We missed out on too. We needed to have Mac on because this is his.
Oh, yeah, Friendship is Magic. Yeah.
Totally lost on that one.
Hold on, real quick. I know what page you're looking for. Hold on. Violet she already knows the splash pages.
I need to know who this is. The anticipation is killing me.
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh, I don't know who that character is, but Violet likes this little pony here. For those
Ah,
watching with the unicorn, I don't know her name, but
okay.
Violet endorses My Little Pony's Transformers,
Nice.
and she thinks other kids will like it too. Can you say goodbye?
Bye.
Bye. There we go. Now she's got
Finally,
it. It took a few times,
took
but
took.
now she's got it. Yes. Awesome. All right. We need to have her on more. We need to have more
Yeah.
recommendations from Violet. She wants her own show. She can start out with like 5-minute segments on TLDR, and then she'll
That's
burst
right,
into
and then
her own
she'll
thing.
choose her and your clock. They'll just take the podcasting world by storm.
Don't joke about that. I got to put up my green screen so I can shut this thing up. Thankfully, that account I haven't seen much from. Anyways, we move into our next grouping that we have planned for everybody. For someone looking to get back into comics, this is superhero comics specifically.
Yes.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah, so I'm going with the book that got me back into it, right? And surprise, surprise to nobody, it's Daredevil
Oh my
by Chip
God.
Zdarsky and Marco Cecchino. And I mean, it just wrapped up. We're starting Devil's Reign. I mean, I've talked about this book ad nauseum, and we had Chip on, and we had a great conversation about it.
That was a lot
But
of fun. For
you
me,
know,
someone just listening to that, it was so much fun.
and I mean, it's yes, like the first book I recommended here, was Batman, like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, X-Men, the Avengers, right? They're the big dogs, right? Those are the ones, that people are just gonna naturally gravitate towards when they walk into a comic book shop the first time, because sort of that's what they know. But if you want to, read something that is engrossing and captivating with beautiful artwork and about a character that you might not know as much, I mean, Daredevil is the perfect book to go with. There's so much conflict here, between Daredevil and Kingpin and Elektra and all the other characters involved. This is a home run of a book, can't miss.
Absolutely. Great call. Great series. I'm obviously not up to date on it like you are. But from what I've read, I've very much enjoyed. And actually, did I read the first? I think I actually did end up reading Devil's Reign. I forgot to put that up on catching up, but
Oh,
that
wasn't that
first
so
issue,
good?
oh, so good. So good.
So
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a great pick.
yeah, and then I just have a couple of honorable mentions here. I mean, crossover. I mean, we talked about crossover on here. We love it because
So good.
it's using all these characters from all these different properties and putting them in one mega superhero story, which is absolutely great. And then another Zdarsky book, Spider-Man Life Story. Like I said, like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, the Avengers, X-Men, like these are the characters that you gravitate towards. And even if you're very familiar with Spider-Man, this was just a different take on his story, and seeing him through the decades. It was I just love this book so much.
No Fantastic Four life story. That's
That's
surprising.
coming up next. It's not done yet, so
Mm.
I didn't want to.
Oh, it's your other honorable mention on
It
this
will be
list?
next year.
Okay.
Every category is going to be a different Fantastic Four book.
So Joe mentioned the book that got him back into comics, and of course, for me, I mentioned that was Red Hood and the Outlaws, the New 52 run, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I think that can fall under here too. But given the direction of Red Hood too, I'm also a little apprehensive to say like that's not the same guy you're going to be dealing with right now in DC, just because he's putting away the guns and all that kind of stuff. Still a lot of fun, but for me, again, I know I'm saying Batman off the rip twice. But Batman White Knight is very different still from Snyder and Capullo's Batman run. It is a Black Label series. It is in Sean Murphy's own little universe. He's had 2 arcs so far. He's got a 3rd one. I don't know if it's going to be the last one. Of course, there's a Harley Quinn spinoff. We had Katana Collins on a while back to talk about that as well. And we've enjoyed everything from this series. And for me, like, this is also like this is good for like when we're talking about people who are looking to get back into superhero comics. Like I can understand you age out of that stuff. There are just some things that Joe and I complain about on here that I could easily see kids not necessarily being bothered by, like Crimson Reign. Maybe younger audience, maybe they're okay with that Star Wars stuff, having all these different things brought in the mix because it's all still kind of new to them. But for us, it's like, no, this is not how it's been. And like you can change stuff, but that doesn't make sense to change things that. Anyways, I digress. With Batman White Knight, of course, Batman, you've seen a lot of similar stuff with him over the years, as much as even Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo to Tynan. And in between, we've seen really good stuff since then. I think that like sometimes when you can get that character really flipped on his head, like Snyder did, it's hard to see that fully happen. But with Batman White Knight, Sean Murphy absolutely does that. He pushes him to his limits. And then we see Joker in a whole different light, and Gotham sees Joker in a whole different light, and it is an absolute mess. It's a shit show for Batman, and it really asks you a lot of questions about him and like with the direction that Joker goes in throughout this story. It's like, well, I mean, I feel a little differently about the way things are going right now. Should I like? Is that wrong of me, or is that just the way that Murphy's kind of handled this? And I absolutely love this series. One of my all-time favorite Batman series.
Yeah, and I love the art too.
Oh, so good.
Whether Murphy's art is unique and it's fantastic, and I think it fits the story perfect. And then when you with White Knight presents Harley, whatever the ridiculous long name of that title was,
Yeah.
Katana Collins' story is Matteo Scalera's art was.
And guess who's the artist on King of Spies? I meant to tell you that.
It's Matteo.
It's Matteo Scalera.
Yeah. His art's great. It's very similar to Murphy's too, so it was a perfect fit.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lot of fun stuff there. We can't wait for the next one that he's got, and it looks like it's going to have Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis involved too. So a lot of fun there. Murphy, I joke about like I want to hear your Mount Rushmore for comic book creators, and as time's gone on, it's like I kind of think Sean Murphy would make my short list, my like top 4. I'm not certain. I'd have to sit and really think about it, but it's like I love everything that he does pretty much.
He's a great writer, and his art's
really
fantastic as well. And I think why this makes a great gift is that again, it's a slightly different take on the Batman mythos, where it's similar enough, but it's just different because that's the thing, right? You've got 1,000 Batman titles, and they're all virtually cut from the same cloth. So when you can get something that's just a little different without completely flipping it on its head and making it like just not what it's supposed to be about, I think you're gonna have a good time. And people reading this book who are familiar enough with Batman but haven't you read the White Knight stuff, the Murphyverse stuff, I think they'll enjoy it very much.
Yeah, and with these things too, for anybody getting back into it who's like, yeah, I might want to get back into it, but like I just don't know where, because if you've read comics, you just know how much there is with some of these legacy characters. Well, this is easily one you could, if you pick this up for somebody you want to buy for a gift, you can easily hand it to them and say, this is separate. This is its own thing. Yes, it's still Batman and all these characters, but it's very much removed from all the mainline stuff, and it doesn't have an impact on it. So you can read it, and it's just like having fun. It is a good story, and that's what DC Black Label is all about.
Yes.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention too, honorable mention, Deathstroke Rebirth. There's a character who stuff's been done with over the years, but not a whole hell of a lot up until like recently, I would say, in terms of having his own title. And Deathstroke Rebirth, Christopher Priest, I can't say enough, is an amazing run. I think it ended up being 50 issues on the nose, but that's one you can collect all those editions, get them the first 2, and they're going to crush them. Like absolutely, I inhaled that shit. All right, we move over to, for someone looking for legacy type character stories outside of Marvel and DC.
So I definitely recency biased with this one, but I love this book so much, and I love where it's going. And we talked with the author as well, Radiant Black, by Kyle Higgins, and art by Marcelo Costa, and
so good.
It's just it's got vibes of Power Rangers at times, which Higgins wrote, but it's such a unique and trippy and heady story, and it carries with it a lot of emotional baggage with it too.
Oh my god, the way it's gone now, these last few issues too. I think the last one's, oh my lord.
Yeah, and so it's like I said, it's heady, it's a bit trippy at times, especially with the artwork. But it's just, there's a lot of really good action, and there's a lot of really good emotion. And so like when you step away from the typical stuff that you get from Marvel and DC and Image, right?
Image,
it's so good, and it borrows from a couple of different things, no doubt about it. But it's I think for again, introducing this to a newer reader that's familiar enough with comics and familiar enough with superheroes, and that's the genre that they like. This will be right in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
easy to read. Like the way the first, I mean, I said it. I read the first issue. I'm doing this on the show. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It pulls you in, and then the direction it goes from there. It's just this is a great book, I think, for anybody.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Absolutely love this. I had a feeling this would be your pick for this. This is a no brainer. I mean, this is the art in this is awesome too. I mean, you're talking about the story primarily, and I couldn't agree with you more. Kyle Higgins has done a great job. I love his work in general, but like Marcelo Costa too, like you said, it gets really trippy, and of course that's where the art comes into play. But these characters too are like superhero characters, but with very much a different look. But it feels like a familiar look as well. And I think that anybody who's just looking for a good story and then they care about superheroes, this is absolutely a book you can pick up. I know we're going to be doing our annual fairly soon, but I can't help but think like if we should be making our definitive list of must-read books, like TLDR must-read books from 2021. We haven't talked about doing that, but that like this is something that I would think like probably makes our list.
Yeah.
Conversation for another day between you and I, but
Yeah, and I was starting to put that together, and there's going to be some really great books that missed the cut because 2021 really brought it.
yeah, this has been 20 like we had some good stuff in 2020, but 2021, man, oh man, there's been a lot of good books. Of course, when I think of legacy type characters too that are like not Marvel or DC, Power Rangers come to mind. Star Wars is going to be doing back to Dark Horse stuff, so I'm interested to see where that goes. The Witcher, we talked about what is it? We did Fading Memories on here. We talked about that quite a bit. Really enjoyed that series. That was there's also Witch's Lament, which I did not like quite as much. I don't know if Joe ended up reading that one, but Dune, of course, you just talked about that on the show. Buffy, there's a ton of Buffy comics from Boom Studios. In Power Rangers, there's stuff from Higgins and Ryan Parrott from years ago, and then there's the stuff that Parrott's doing right now, which I was thinking about going with Power Rangers here, but then I was like, Invincible is so much at the forefront right now that I have to say this is the one. I talked about this on the show a while back. Now I did it kept it toward like the earlier volumes of Invincible because I didn't know what the show was going to do. Definitely some differences between the show and the comics, but very much a similar vibe. So if you know someone that likes this, that like the series, there are some differences where you can go and read the comic, you'd still enjoy it, be like, oh, that's a change, whatever. Comics are different than novels in that regard. Like or graphic novels are different than prose novels in that regard, I should say, where you can go and watch something, but then you go and read it, and it's a different experience. You can still enjoy it very much. And there's just so much more to Invincible. Of course, Robert Kirkman, there's Ryan Otley. There's just so much more to this series that like they can get way beyond the show. The first season was great, but we can get way beyond this and be ahead of the game when that second season, even like third, fourth, fifth come around, because this show's not going anywhere. We're gonna be around for a long time.
Yeah, that was a fantastic show, and I look forward to reading the books at some point. But yeah, that was a hell of a pick.
Then we move over to, let's see, we have for someone new to horror books.
Yeah. So again, we're doing 2 apiece on this one, and I could have done 5 apiece on this one. This was hard to narrow it down to 2, but I think when you're choosing books to introduce someone who's a fan of horror, you want to give them something unique. And I went with 2 different types of horror books here. I went with one that just will scare the fucking piss out of you, and then the other one, which is definitely got that slower like build, like suspense type to it. So first, Hotel by John Lees and art by Dalibor Talajic,
Outstanding,
from AWA Studios. I mean, this is creepy as fuck, right? And the imagery is terrifying. The storytelling, it's the artwork that is the most terrifying thing. The storytelling is brilliant, and it does a really great job of just sort of this slow playing, and then boom, when you get the crescendo and the climax, I should say, just sort of like, oh fuck, what the hell did I just read? And then when it all comes together, it's a fantastic story. And volume 2 just started last week. So definitely for someone that likes terrifying, creepy ass shit, like this is the book for them.
Yeah. So before you go into your second one, I do want to say that I absolutely co-sign on this one. This might be, this might be my favorite horror book that I don't know. We did our rankings on Dork, and obviously this finished up pretty high. But like this is the storytelling on this. That's one of the buzzwords that we use a lot on this show, Joe. And this is done in such a it's a unique manner. Like I've never seen anything like it before, where it's like it's its own individual story, but then it's like, okay, he's got this little tie here. Then we see its own individual story, and then it's got a tie to another thing, and it ties back to this other story, and it keeps doing that over and over 4 stories, and it's just like
It's like Pulp Fiction in that manner, right? Where
Yeah,
you've got all those
there you
different,
go, that's a good
stories,
call.
and they're all connected, but not necessarily directly. Like
Mhm,
you might be like 2 different characters might be passing in the background,
mhm,
and that's the only real connection you get. But then you see where their stories lie in the larger scheme of things, and so
mhm.
it definitely has that Pulp Fiction storytelling feel to it, which is great. And then
So fast, so easy
Talijic's
to consume.
art, man. Oh,
Oh yeah,
like
terrifying.
forget about it.
Great pick.
And then the other book I went with was definitely one of my favorite of 2021, The Autumnal.
Mhm.
Right.
So
This
good.
was again, this was more suspense. You definitely had some imagery, from here and there that had that horror vibes to it, but it really wasn't until the series got towards the last 2 issues that the horror elements of it really ratcheted up a notch. It just had that awesome, creepy Stephen King vibe to it. Small town, New Hampshire.
Mhm.
Something's not right. You've got some creepy ass shit going on. And the way the suspense builds and the way the characters are developed and everything about this is just, I think, an absolute home run
Mhm.
of a horror book. So this is one I would recommend that someone that likes suspense, but not like necessarily flat out like
Gore.
in your face horror or gore, like anything like that. Like I wanted to pick 2 different styles of books here to sort of appeal to 2 different types of horror book readers, because I think just because you like horror books, you don't necessarily like them all. You like different
Right.
horror books for different reasons. And so, you know, I think there's 2 good options here that I think will appeal to a good number of people.
And if they end up liking Autumnal too, let them know to pick up Witches, because that's another one that's similar. Or
Yes.
read Witches and then read Autumnal. Like they are very similar vibes, similar ilk, different stories still. I think as much as it was Snyder and Jock that wrote Witches, which is getting turned into a show, which was a great series in its own right. I think Autumnal did it a little bit better just because
Mm.
some of the twists towards the end of the Autumnal story, and it's just like, well, they really get you to buy in on certain stuff. So an
I
amazing
think the
series.
pacing was better in Autumnal than it was in Witches. Witches kind of like it pulled you in, then it just kind of wrapped up.
That's
And
fair.
Autumnal, I think, was just nice, perfectly paced. Because
Mhm.
there's only 8 issues. Both were very small runs.
Yeah.
And Autumnal for me was just a tick better. But you're
Yeah.
right. You can't go wrong with either one.
And of course, that one is from Vault. I can't remember if you mentioned
Yes.
it already, Joe. But
Yep.
actually, I mentioned that Hotel was on Dork's like top horror books of all time. Autumnal snuck in there too. And Joe and I had those so high on our respective lists that Rich Keefe, before we did the show, had to go out and buy the books and read them beforehand because he hadn't read them, to make sure like he graded those out properly, and he loved those too, if I remember correctly, both of
Mm-hmm.
them, right, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So for me, your picks are the first ones I would have thought of. So like mine are good. Don't get me wrong, but Joe's are definitely number one and number two that you should pick up for somebody. That said, John Constantine, Hellblazer, City of Demons. Was this the first book that I talked about on the show? No, yeah, it was the first book I talked
Mm-hmm.
about.
And
Is
then
this
I damn near spoiled it a week
Yeah,
ago.
that's right. This is the first book I talked about on TLDR when Joe talked about Daredevil. So this was last year, right? Okay, it would have been 2020 that we did this so long ago. This is one of 2 books that I feel comfortable recommending to pretty much anybody. So yes, it is horror. Yes, there are a lot of images that are like, oh shit, but it's still a really good story, really great character. John Constantine is one of the best comic book characters out there, period. I've said for a while that Red Hood is my favorite, and of course, I love Spawn, I love Gambit, but Constantine is friggin' right there for me too. He's just like he's such a bastard, and everybody just gets fucked over by him all the time. And then he kind of hates himself, but in the end, he always like it's just he's such an interesting character. And to me, this is one of the better written stories that he where he is at the center of everything, and it's just him too. This is not a teen book or anything like that. This is written by Cy Spencer, the late Cy Spencer, great writer. And then of course Sean Murphy, again one of my favorite creators, artist first, as much as he's becoming a great writer and everything. This is a great intro to horror too, because it's scary, but it's really not that scary. Whereas, and there is some violence, but the other book I have is far more violent, and that is a book Joe talked about on this show. It's Philadelphia, and if you want to get some single copies of stuff, go pick up the first two issues of Nita Hawes. The second one just came out last week. Awesome series from Image. Rodney Barnes, who we've had on the show a couple times, and then the artist for Philadelphia is Jason Sean Alexander, who had previously been doing Spawn. Some nightmare fuel shit in this series. A lot of violence, vampires, great stories, social commentary, all this kind of stuff, and it's an ongoing story too. And this is something that the first 3 volumes are out. Pick them all up. Whoever you give this to, if they like horror at all, they're gonna love this series.
Yeah, it's a can't miss. And you're right. Same thing with Nita Hawes. Both those books are must reads, can't miss. And again, like Jason Sean Alexander's art in Philadelphia it's visceral, it's ferocious, it is just next level stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, that's another sort of in your face, vampire, like horror. There's blood, man, and there's violence, and it is awesome. When it comes to Constantine, I think the best way I describe it is sort of it's gothic, right? It's got that real sort of gothic feel to it, where you've got your monsters and you've got your demons, and especially the way that Murphy draws it, it just got that sort of old Spanish goth sort of architecture feel to it, just the way things are drawn and the colors that are used and everything. Like, I think there's a nice broad spectrum of horror books that we just discussed that I think will appeal to anybody, even people that aren't like horror book fans. I think they can appreciate books like Autumnal and John Constantine. And if they're adverse to the gorier or the more fucked up shit, then maybe they'll be out on Hotel in Philadelphia. But like those books, they're awesome. The storytelling in each one of those books, while unique, is some next level stuff.
I love all the books that are on this, even Transformers and My Little Ponies that are on this list. But I gotta say, like these 4 right here, I may feel the best about these 4. And I know the next section we're gonna do too, and we got some really good ones there. Before we move on to our final section of recommendations for the holiday season, Bunny Mask from Aftershock. I don't know if that trade is out, but if that is another one that's like more eerie than anything else. There is a little bit of violence in that for sure too. You're going to get that with pretty much any horror book, but it's like very like spine tingling. So if you have somebody who I guess maybe they're not new to horror and they're just looking for something scary that's good to read, look for that trade and get them that one, because that's a great series, great 4-issue series too. And there should be more from Paul Tobin in that one too, which I can't wait for. And then what do we got left? We have for someone new to indies, but not necessarily new to comics.
Yeah, so this is for the people that are just primarily Marvel, DC, and even Image to an extent, because I consider that definitely one of the big boys. But like, we've seen the emergence of AWA Studios, Boom Studios, Dark Horse, Aftershock, and I'm gonna tell you what, Vault. Like we talked about not too recently how Aftershock's been killing it. Like Vault all of a sudden has got some real real good titles out.
Yeah, they
And,
do. They got some real good shit.
Looking for more and more of their stuff too. But the first one, this is the one I chose for the Geeks Worldwide holiday gift guide as well. And that's The Resistance from AWA Studios, written by J. Michael Straczynski and art by Mike Diodato. I love a great deal of AWA books, and I've talked about a lot of them. Archangel 8, Chariot,
Mhm.
American Ronin, I mean, I think I've talked more
Redemption.
AWA books, Redemption, on here than maybe any other
I think you're
outside of
right.
Image, right? But
Mm.
I chose the Resistance because, again, this is a holiday gift guide issue, and so trying to introduce someone into a smaller label is not always the easiest thing because, like Marvel, DC, and Image shootings, that's the comfort food of
Mhm.
comics. But there's some really great titles out there by some of these smaller publishers, and Resistance is great because I've talked about it again on the show, where it's this entire universe. I mean, this studio was found. This is one of the pillars that AWA was founded on, creating a superhero universe for the 21st century, dealing with 21st century shit. Being relatable, and what they've done is they've created all these titles around one not simple event, but one mega event that happens, where it affects, you know millions of people. And
Mhm.
so, from the Resistance, you've got, all these new, I don't even want to call them superheroes because they're not all heroes, because the people that got affected with powers are both good and bad. And so that creates a lot of conflict here. But you've got, like, just in this universe alone, you've got the Resistance volumes 1 and 2. You've got a one shot, Resistance Reborn. You've got the Moths title, which just ended, which was fantastic. Knighted, which is ongoing right now. Erratic, which is in this universe, and it's geared more towards young adult readers. So, like, there's a
Mhm.
broad spectrum of books here for a wide range of readers, and it's just something new to sink your teeth into. And there's a lot of stuff. It's not just like, oh, it's just this one title and that's it. You've got, different writers writing all these different titles for that takes place in this one universe, and it's awesome. It is
Mhm.
so good. Just the Resistance volumes 1 and 2 alone is a must read. And so the hope is that someone grabs the Resistance, they read it, they love it. That spawns off into the rest of the Resistance universe titles, and then they start saying, you know what, AWA's got some really good stuff here. Let's go read Archangel 8. Let's go read American Ronin. Let's go read Chariot. Let's go read Not All Robots. And, like
Mhm.
AWA has just absolutely killed it. So I thought this was just a perfect place to
Yeah.
introduce a new small indie label to someone that's not typically into reading small indie labels.
And I think if you're trying to find a way, like if you give them this and you're trying to like sell them on it, just have them listen to TLDR. Have them listen to Joe talk about Resistance, because that is one of, like, as much as you're passionate about AWA on the whole, you are very passionate about this universe in particular. And
It's
every
so
time you talk
good.
about it, it's like this would be like, this is like Joe's like the best spokesman for AWA. Honestly, he truly is. But yeah, I mean, there's so much else too. I mean, Marjorie Finnegan's going to be wrapping up
Yeah.
fairly soon too.
I mean, they've got so many titles.
Oh,
They're
what's the
just
one
killing.
that
It's a
Percy's on
it's
a
a
couple over there? We talked. What was the one that I
Oh,
read?
Gear Zero and Devil's Highway,
Devil's
right?
Highway, so good.
Right?
Oh my
I
god,
mean,
Devil's Highway. Oh, that's an underrated one. That's an underrated one from AWA to go pick up. I talked about it on the show.
yeah.
Definitely.
And we talked with Benjamin Percy. I mean, they've just, like, it's very rare for them to put something out that's just kind of like meh,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
That's very true. Very true.
Um, and then, so that was the first one. The second one here, I mean, this is a no-brainer. This is like,
Mhm.
you want to be a badass and tell all your friends, like, how cool you are. You're like, go read Preacher,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, I I almost didn't put it on there because I felt like it was, like, too obvious, and this is not necessarily a book for everyone, but it is just so good. It is so gonzo, it is so twisted, and it is so messed up that that's where its brilliance lies,
Hmm.
right? It's just in the bizarre recesses of Garth Ennis's brain.
Yeah.
And Axel Alonso just gave Ennis and Dylan, while they're at Vertigo, just carte blanche to just do whatever. And while it seemed like as though, like, oh, is this going to be the issue that gets us fired, kind of thing, they
Hmm.
went with it. And I mean, it's if someone's never read indies before and they're not, like, 10 years old,
Mm.
read this book. And I mean, there's a lot of it, and it'll definitely take up a lot of time reading it, but you'll enjoy it. And this is definitely a must read.
So I know your nephew is too young for this book,
Yeah,
but
God no.
if Joe, like if you're like Joe and you're trying to be the uncle to help your nephew get more so nephew than actually no, maybe a niece. I don't fucking know. Like if you're trying to be the cool uncle and you have a niece or nephew who likes comics a lot, but they're like trying to find that next step, or they just haven't been introduced to indies. Of course, Vertigo was part of DC, and now you have DC Black Label over there and everything, the rebranding, whatever. It's all similar shit. But Preacher is definitely the book to get them into, because then it's like, oh my god, comics can be cool outside of superhero shit. Like, and then once you get to that, the possibilities are endless. And
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet Preacher was that for a lot of different people, as much as
Oh,
people liked a lot of Vertical stuff in
mhm.
general, because I've talked about a few of them on here. But Preacher, like Garth Ennis, like that is, I mean, that's got to be his. I know I have another book that I will mention from him, but that's got to be his all-time best, right? Or unless I'm blanking on something. But
No, it's Preacher's genre defining. It's a moment in time. It is just a definitive book on what I think independent comics are.
yeah,
Like
it's
that is it,
this when you have someone who says like, oh, comics, like you're a kid because you read comics. No, read Preacher. That
Yeah.
is very much not that at all. It is an outstanding story.
Yeah.
It's just it's a unbelievable page turner that you just will like you won't want to put down at all.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And then just a couple of honorable mentions that I think are great gifts. Lock and Key. This is another series, a series that got me back into comics again. Reading this, this is written by Joe Hill, and this is from IDW. And I mean, the TV show is shit. Don't go by the Netflix show.
You know what's
But
funny is I know someone who watched the show that didn't read the books and liked the show. So I don't know.
yeah, well, because they don't know any better,
I guess so.
right? Read the books and you'd be like, "Well, this show stinks." But it's a great comic. Again, horror, great storytelling, great characters. Can't miss book there. And then, even though this book is only, I think, 3 issues in, maybe 4. Uh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. It probably won't wrap up until 5 years from now at the pace that it's going,
Yeah.
and it's only a 5-issue book, but it's just so good. Like
Yeah, it's fun.
comics, Ninja Turtles, uh, gritty. It's awesome. I mean, it's everything you want turtles to be.
I will say though, if they're not familiar with the Ninja Turtles at all, and this is the only exposure that they get, they're gonna love this, but they're gonna want more. And it's like you're not like you'll get some of that. You get some grittiness with the Ninja Turtles, but like it definitely got like corporatized over the years. But Ronin,
Yeah.
Last Ronin
Yeah.
is awesome. So for me, you bring up one that's like a no brainer, right? In Preacher, and you're like, should I bring it up? But this is for people who just haven't read indies, they haven't taken that next step. And while I think Preacher is a great one to do that with, the best one right now to do that with might be Saga, because as much as Preacher, as you know, you have all the story there, it's all there in a collected edition, you can get that easy. Saga, you can get everything up until now, but we're getting new stuff soon. And Saga, and we're going to be doing something, for Saga for its return, because it is that big of a book. Of course, this is from Image. And Joe, you are right. Image and DC and Marvel, as much as DC and Marvel have their own thing because of the movies and everything, like Image, their business obviously structure is a little bit different, but like they every bit have as awesome stories in the comics that are produced today. Image probably is number one in my book, I would say.
No doubt. No doubt.
So in Saga we haven't been getting Saga over the last couple of years. Like, so now they're getting their number one horseback. So I cannot be more excited about this series returning. Of course, this is by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. And I think, Joe, after I talked about it on the show, when you went back and read some of it, I think you put it best. I may be paraphrasing here, but correct me if I'm wrong. You said it's Romeo and Juliet on acid.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we just talked about this with Preacher. Preacher is sort of a genre defining, book that is it's a generational book. That's what Saga is,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, Preacher came out when early 2000s, right? Saga it came out a little while ago as well, and it's been on a nice long hiatus. But again, it's gonzo, it's bizarre, it's twisted, and it's brilliant. And it's a space opera. It's a tale as literal as old as time. and but like with a few pounds of cocaine and several tabs of acid.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely bananas. And like you just there's never been like a greater example of a page turner.
Yeah,
Maybe I want to say like in comics, but I feel like it can go beyond that. Like this is the book that like you go into it. Like I know the Newberry in Dartmouth, they always have Saga on display. Like Saga, like the first volume of Saga, always on display. Like it's always getting sold. It doesn't matter. It's just and people find it years later and they're still buying it. It's and once you get that first one, it's just like, oh wow, this is nuts. What is it? What did I just stumble upon? And it is insane. It is outstanding. And you will like whoever you give this to will not be disappointed with this series. I've never heard of someone saying, Saga's all right. I didn't really like Saga. I've never met someone that felt that way. I'm sure there are people like that out there, but like I have a hard time imagining there's too many of them.
yeah,
I now we brought up Garth Ennis. I do want to make a quick honorable mention before I get to my other recommendation. You brought up Garth Ennis, of course. He was great on The Punisher. He wrote The Boys. We're getting that show, which has been outstanding. Another one that's from Dynamite. We haven't talked about them at all, but that's another one you could pick up for somebody very, very fucked up. But Sarah from TKO Studios. We did a lot of TKO stuff early on in our show because there's a lot of great books that they've put out. You've done a few on here. I've done quite a few. Really like their shit. However, like we haven't been getting as much. Like they only produce like stuff in bulk. They do it at a certain time of the year and then they kind of just fall back into the ether. I know they did stuff recently, but we didn't get our hands on that yet. But Sarah from TKO, I believe it was part of the first wave. That is Garth Ennis, Steve Epting, and it is it's set in if you like historical fiction, the person that you're getting this book for, they are going to absolutely love this. If you like strong female characters too, absolutely gonna love Sarah. Awesome book from TKO, and you can get that on their site, but there are definitely shops that carry stuff from TKO as well. Really like that book. But I'm gonna wrap it up with Tokyo Ghost from Image, my third Sean Murphy book on this list. So again, I think we're starting to see like he's got to be number one for me, if not on my Mount Rushmore. But Rick Remender was the writer on this series. This is a 2-arc story. If you like sci-fi, get in on this one. Get whoever's you're buying this for, get them in on this. This is recently optioned for a movie, and this is another one where it's like the whole story itself is just like on acid and addicted to technology and absolute page turner. Debbie Decay, Led Dance. Oh God, I got to reread that. It's so good.
yeah. I was so pumped when I read this and then talked about it on the show. And again, Murphy's artwork is phenomenal. I mean, it's a giant allegory, for addiction, and not
Yep.
so subtle
Nope.
at moments. But just again, you talk about page turner. It's a great sci-fi book. We don't have a ton of sci-fi books on this list, so for the sci-fi fan, this is definitely one that you'd want to pick up and get for them. So hell of a list, Nicholas.
Hell of a list. And for Brick in the chat asking if this shit is still going or if this is a replay, this is not a replay. This is just an extended edition of TLDR because we want to make sure everybody's taken care of in the holiday season. We know, like, I've had people ask me, like, what, like, family members or whatever, like, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for Christmas? Like, A, I'm 30. You don't need to buy me anything. And B, I've read everything and I buy all the books that I want. But there are definitely people who aren't like us who don't necessarily go and buy everything.
Fucking Scrooge McDuck over here. Jesus.
Okay. Anyways, I want everybody to have options for the holiday season if you're trying to go buy something. So make sure you tell someone about this if they're looking to buy comics for their significant other, their nieces and nephews, whoever they're trying to buy comics for. Ton of options here. I love Joe's options, and I couldn't be happier with the ones that I came up with. But anything else to add, Joe? I've heard it both ways. Episode 13 this week of season 3?
No, Billy's got to go to Miami this week, so we will return next week.
Yeah, he gets to do all the fun stuff, and me over here, I'm working the graveyard shift, and we work at this. Shows you who's really important at the company that we work at. But anyways, okay, so I guess until next week when we do our holiday special, stay sexy.
You know it.